Carries on. For 2 minutes, 2 and then minutes 2, 3, 4. Not the first, not the first.
Oh, I see what you mean. You could do it, could you?
Which one did you need answers for? When I wrote that about drinking.
3 minutes, I think. Here about it.
Well, good morning.
Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me as the head of Agora Portals International School to welcome all of you today here at Agora Portals. Thank you very much, Kate, for organizing these debates. Really, these debates are important because these are the skills that our students today really need for their future, okay? Because it's important to transmit knowledge, obviously, but these skills of debating, of speaking in front of the public, these are really, really important. About these debates, for me, the most important is not the competition itself, right? But the work you have been doing previously for preparing, the information you have found out for preparing this debate, and the skills you have acquired during the preparation time with your teacher. For me, this is really important, okay? Now, please, try to enjoy. Try to enjoy while you try to convince us about your position, and try to defend your position with the maximum respect to the opposing time, okay? This is for me really important. Let's debate, because sure, this will be the skills you will need and will be more important for your future. Okay? Enjoy and go ahead. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everybody, and many thanks to Senior Barea and as well to Javier for the very warm welcome. Thank you, sir. This is the fourth debate in this 9th series, and of course, Agora versus Mallorca International. Well done for getting here in time on that motorway. Other 8 schools that are included, just for the reference: the Academy, Belver, BIC, the French Lycée, Green Valley, Montessori, Queen's, and San Cayetano. I'd like to give a warm welcome to a new member of our team, Felicitas Running. Thank you for being here this morning. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors. Our main sponsors is Palmer Pictures, represented here by a member of the jury, Paul Aubrey. Thank you so much for all your help, Paul. We've got the MCC, the new sports centre in Santa Ponta, Mallorca Bulletin, Ticket Travel, Portals Hills Hotel, and Ibex Insurance. Many, many thanks, of course, to these gentlemen at the front here. So every Tuesday and Thursday in their busy lives, nearly all of them are working either for companies or autonomous. Thank you so much, judges and timekeepers. And of course to the stalwarts, what I do without them, Viv, Harry and Ron. Thank you so much. Thank you. Agora team today, we have Claudia, Maria and Mark. Is that correct? Yes. And Mallorca International team, Harry, Seth and Jasmine. Correct? Right, our team keeper today is David Tittle. The jury spokesperson, Paul Aubrey, Steve Mason, and Nick Murgatroyd. Welcome, Nick, your first jury duty. The motion today, rising nationalism in Europe, is contrary to the EU concept of open borders. A little bit longer than usual. Again, rising nationalism in Europe is contrary to the EU concept of open borders. For the motion, Mallorca International. Against the motion, Agora. Over to our timekeeper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kate. Good morning, teams. Thank you very much for coming. Before we start, one point for the judges. Could we please have your speaking order? So you can just indicate who is speaking first, second, and third. First, Harry.
I'm second.
Seth. Jasmine.
I'm first.
Hang on.
I'm second.
Okay, each of you have 5 minutes to make your points. There will be a bell at the start when you're ready, just indicating that you're ready. You then have the first minute when you can't be interrupted. Then there's a second bell after a minute, after which the opposing team can introduce points of information. Up until the end of the 4th minute, when there's another bell, then you have the final minute to close. Points of information must be delivered within 15 seconds and answered within 15 seconds. I think apart from that, good to go. First speaker, please.
Good morning, honourable judges, timekeeper, members of the opposing team, and distinguished guests. Thank you, judges, for giving us this opportunity to debate today. Today, we are here to debate the motion, rising nationalism in Europe is contrary to the EU concept of open borders. My team is debating for this motion. I, Harry van der Straten, will be explaining that right-wing parties and anti-immigration policies have been gaining popularity in recent years. The second speaker, Seth Heath, will be explaining the difference between Hungary and Germany's views on this problem. Our final speaker, Jasmine Dawson, will be explaining the views of Pedro Sanchez on this situation. Nationalism is being proud of your country, right? Supporting your nation's football team, its needs, protecting its needs, and caring about improving your own people, whether through immigration or not, right? Wrong. Nationalism is more than that. Nationalism is being right-wing in the extreme. Nationalism is the determination to keep your own culture safe for fear of its being diluted by other cultures. And sometimes, to do this, more extreme measures are considered necessary to be put in place. There has been a surge in nationalist countries in the last few years. At the same time, the number of refugees and immigrants has skyrocketed due to the war in Ukraine, the Israel-Palestine conflict, and poor labour rights and declining economic conditions in other countries. And what is the attitude of nationalistic political parties? To welcome this increasing number of refugees and help them, as some of these countries themselves have needed help in the past. No. Instead, nationalism has pushed people to vote for more extreme anti-immigration policies on the basis of preventing their resources from being stretched thin. One such example of one of these new right-wing countries is France. This year, the right-wing party, the National Rally, has gained massive popularity. This has led to many rules to do with immigration being tightened. One such example is that France is controversially planning to adopt the strategy from Italy of sending immigrants to a third country processing centre. This means that refugees will not even enter French or EU territory while they are being processed for asylum. On top of that, France, as well as many other countries, is temporarily reintroducing checks at all of its land, air and sea borders. Their supposed justification is that this is necessary due to the growing presence of criminal networks facilitating irregular immigration and smuggling. Apparently, this shows that migration is becoming a severe problem. Thank you.
Can a nation stand tall while embracing the world beyond its borders. Today we argue that nationalism and open borders are not opposing forces, but complementary ideals that can thrive together in a modern Europe. Good morning, judges, teachers, and students. Welcome to this debate. Today we'll be speaking about nationalism and open borders. Can they work together? My team, formed by Mariela, the first rebuttal, Mark, the second one, and myself, Claudia, during the introduction, strongly believe that nationalism and open borders can coexist, and will prove it in many ways. Let's start off with what is nationalism. According to the Britannica Dictionary, nationalism is an ideology that emphasizes loyalty, devotion, or allegiance to a nation or nation-state, and holds that such obligations outweigh other individual or group interests. But what is nationalism in the EU? Nationalism in the European Union is when people feel strongly about their own country and want to keep its culture and identity safe. Overall, nationalism shows how people want to bias their own national pride while being part of a larger community. On the other hand, what are open borders? According to the dictionary Cambridge University, an open border is a situation in where goods and people can enter and leave a country freely, easily. But what is the EU's concept of open borders? The European Union's concept of open borders is when people from member countries can travel, live, and work within these countries without needing a passport or visa. This makes traveling within the EU almost as easy as traveling within your own country. This is part of the Schengen Area Agreement. The Schengen Area Agreement allows free travel across many European countries without passports or border checks, making Europe feel more connected. This information about the Schengen Area Agreement is found on page 4 of the official document in where securities and borders of the EU are explained. The arguments we'll use to prove that nationalism and open borders can coexist are: 1. Nationalism can still support open borders for economic reasons. 2. Nationalist parties in the EU aren't contrary to the EU concept of open borders. And 3. The concepts of open borders and nationalism are independent of each other. Each member of my team will develop one argument, including myself. My argument is nationalism can still support open borders for economic reasons. Nationalism is about wanting the best for your own country, and open borders can actually help.
You talked about how nationalism means being proud of your country. But do you not agree that nationalism has a new definition today with how it has a new different definition today?
Well, thank you for your POI, Jasmine. I mean, I got my definition out of the Britannica Dictionary. Is that what you meant?
I was just wondering if you thought.
Continue. Well, as I was saying, nationalism is about protecting your own country's interests, and open borders can actually help a country's interests, such as its economy. With open borders, countries can trade easily, and people can work in different countries, which makes the economy grow. Nationalist governments can support this because nationalist governments can still support this because.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Brett.
Even if nationalist governments want to focus on their own people, they can still see the benefits of letting workers and goods move easily. It helps create more jobs and boosts the economy overall. For example, many businesses in Europe, such as Accenture, depend on people being able to move around easily. Nationalists can support this because it helps their economy. If nationalists truly want their country to thrive, they can't afford to ignore the benefits of open borders. By supporting free movement, they help secure a stronger economy, more jobs, and a brighter future for their people, which is what nationalists want. Rejecting this would only hold the nation back. In conclusion, rising nationalism does not have to go against the EU's concept of open borders. Nationalism can focus on its own country's interests while still allowing cooperation within the EU. Countries can manage their borders without fully closing them, keeping both safety and benefits of free movement. Nationalism can help balance national identity with the EU's goal of open borders and shared prosperity. So the big question is, can nationalism and the EU's open border idea work together, or is one of them bound to win? We don't think so. Let's dive further into this debate and find out how these two important ideas might shape Europe's future. Thank you.
discuss how the rise of nationalism in Europe directly opposes the European Union's open border policy. A policy designed to promote unity and cooperation across the continent. The EU's open borders, established through the Schengen Agreement, allow people to travel freely between member countries without the need for passports or border checks. This has been key in creating stronger ties between European nations, fostering economic growth and promoting cultural expansion. However, the recent rise of nationalism, where countries focus more on their own interests and less on working with others, threatens this important principle. Hungary is a clear example of this, as under Prime Minister Viktor Orban, Hungary has adopted a very strict approach towards immigration. During the 2015 refugee crisis, Orban's government chose to build fences along its borders and pass laws that made it harder for people to enter the country. Orban has argued that Hungary needs to protect its national identity and sovereignty, even if that means going against the EU's open border policy. He sees immigration, especially from outside Europe, as a threat to Hungary's culture and security. Can we really say that rising nationalism is not contrary to the EU open border policy? In contrast, Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor of Germany and a non-right-wing.
You said that immigration is a problem for Hungary, correct? And
That's how
but yes, yeah. But you also said that that the open borders is freely within Europe. But the immigrants you're mentioning, I believe, are coming from outside of the European Union.
I don't see how it relates to immigration. I feel like the open border policy means that not all immigrants were coming just from its movement in general when it closed the borders for anyone. Just because it was immigrants coming from outside of Europe means they closed off the borders temporarily for the whole of Europe and everywhere else. Orban has argued that Hungary needs to protect its national identity and sovereignty, even if it means going. He sees immigration, especially from outside Europe, as a threat to Hungary's. In contrast, Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor of Germany and a non-right-wing dictator, took a very different stance during the same refugee crisis. While many countries were closing their borders, Merkel made the bold decision to welcome over 1 million refugees into Germany. Merkel saw the refugee crisis as a challenge that Europe could overcome together, with countries helping each other rather than closing themselves off. For her, the open border policy was not just about allowing people to move freely, but about promoting unity and shared responsibility for the crisis. This contrast between Hungary's nationalist approach and Merkel.
You mentioned that Angela Merkel responded positively to the 2015 migrant crisis. However, later on during that year, there were the Cologne attacks where over 1,000 women were sexually assaulted. And Germany didn't really react better to that, would you have to say?
Wouldn't you say that it is a separate issue to the immigrants in? If there are over 1 million immigrants let in, that could be an issue with different parts. And was it all the immigrants that caused the attack, or was it just people in Germany? Nationalist leaders like Orban want to protect their country's borders and cultures, seeing the open border policy as a threat to national identity. Meanwhile, leaders like Merkel in the past and Pedro Sanchez today believe that Europe is stronger when it remains open and united. Not only are nationalist countries trying to temporarily close their borders under the EU open border policy itself, 14 EU countries, heavily promoted by the leaders of the nationalist governments, have written to the EU to demand a harsher stance against immigration. And, under this pressure, the EU are caving, having said just last week that stricter rules will be brought in to support countries not having to take in so many immigrants. In fact, they're even willing to use Italy's recent controversial policy of sending Albanians back to their own country for processing as a model moving forwards. In conclusion, the rise of nationalism in Europe stands in direct opposition to the EU's open border policy. And if anything, is it not working against what the EU values and what they hope for with the open border policy?
good morning, judges, teachers, and fellow students. My name is Marila Potier, and I'll be presenting Rebuttal 1 against today's motion. Rising nationalism in Europe is contrary to the EU concept of open borders. As Seth mentioned, Hungary and Germany have had several occasions where they responded positively to the income of immigrants. However, there are many more countries to take into account rather than just 2 of the many EU countries in the EU. In my rebuttal, I'll be speaking and proving why today's motion is false in the context that nationalist parties in the EU aren't contrary to the EU concept of open borders or the Schengen area. While these parties criticize certain aspects of the EU concept of open borders, they aren't completely against it for several reasons. They are aiming to reform the system rather than just completely dismantling its core principles. A very misunderstood concept is that rising nationalist parties in the EU seek to reform, not abolish, open borders between EU countries. This is commonly misunderstood because the nationalist parties such as the AfD in Germany or Alternative for Germany seek to they want the complete closure of external EU borders, and it's proven by their ideology on one of their documents. Here, as you can see, they prove that they want the complete closure of EU borders thanks to many failures that the EU has done with their concept of open borders. They want the complete closure of external EU borders, that is to say, borders between countries like Poland and Belarus, one belonging to the Schengen Agreement as a member, and the other one not. What the nationalist parties are concerned about is mismanagement of external borders and immigration. One of the critical points to consider is that nationalist parties generally support the idea of free movement within the EU, but they want to tighten external borders. For example, in France, the Rassemblement National, led by Marine Le Pen, is often depicted as the opponent of the EU's free movement policies. However, Le Pen has clarified in several occasions that she would just not plan on abandoning the Schengen Agreement altogether, because her ideology is mainly focused on preserving the French culture and enhancing security.
Is it not so that Marine Le Pen described Europe as a monster that would like to take away the diplomacy of France?
Sorry, I don't have any information to answer that question, but thank you very much, Harry, for that question. As I was saying, now we're going to move on to another country, as in Germany, the AfD does not call for the country's withdrawal from the Schengen area or the elimination of free movement from the EU. Additionally, one of the main problems in the EU is facing is external migration. Yeah?
You talk about the closure of external borders, but doesn't every EU country have the right to take in asylum seekers as well?
Yes, they do. That is not relevant to what I was saying, but thank you for your question. Yes. Hungary's Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, is a politician which regularly comes up when speaking of this topic. His government is frequently cited, as Seth mentioned, for strict stance on immigration, including making fences and many other movements. But Orban has repeatedly affirmed that Hungary's commitment to free movement of the EU citizens. In conclusion, while nationalist parties in Europe do advocate for stricter external borders, they do not fundamentally oppose the EU's core principle of free movement within its borders. These parties are focused on reforming how external migration is managed, aiming to enhance security and preserve cultural identity without undermining benefits of internal EU mobility. Ultimately, they seek to balance national sovereignty with the advantages of European integration, not to dismantle the Schengen system. Thank you very much.
Good morning, distinguished guests, timekeeper, opposing team and judges. Thank you all for giving us the chance to debate. I, Jasmine Dawson, am here to explain why rising nationalism is contrary to the EU concept of open borders by explaining the fundamental human morals behind this motion. We will discuss a very powerful recent speech by our Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, and how his speech is a direct retaliation to the rise in nationalism. We'll also shine light onto nationalism and how this is causing millions of people to be turned away. On the 9th of October, Pedro Sanchez gave the nation a speech that detailed how migrants and asylum seekers are not only welcome but vital in Spain, stating that welcoming the outsider is not only a duty but a step towards guaranteeing the welfare state. A welfare state is where governments take responsibility for everyone's lives and make sure they get the social services they need. The right to education, the right to see a doctor. Pretty important, right? Pedro Sanchez's speech comes after an immense and troubling rise in nationalism in Spain, where his party, the PSOE, is the only left-wing party in the top 3 largest parties, along with the Partido Popular, PP, and Vox. Vox, for example, was only founded in 2014. However, its strong anti-immigration stance has made its amount of supporters grow, from having no seats in 2015 to 52 seats in 2019. This is a graph detailing the change in seats due to the general elections in Spain. In the green and the blue, we can see the Partido Popular and Vox. And in the red, we can see the PSOE, led by Pedro Sanchez, a left-wing government. From 2019 to 2023, just by looking at the colours, you can see a rise in nationalism in Spain as the amount of seats has grown in Vox and the Partido Popular.
Okay, what? Doesn't that graph also show that the left wings is increasing and thus they're the same? I don't know.
If you look in this graph, it's quite hard because of the numbers, but if you look in the PSOE, it changes from 122 from 120 in 2019 to 122 in 2023. So it does rise, obviously, but not as much as nationalistic governments. Spain is just an example, but many other European countries mirror this trend. Hungary, Poland, Italy, France, and Austria are all examples that have seen this rise. Nationalism is rising in the EU. I think it's important when talking about immigration and open borders that we remember we are talking about the lives of millions of people and how rising nationalism will change the course of someone's life. In a report by the BBC, a reporter visited a group of men in Leon. Among them, Michael, who fled Ghana to escape a violent feud that saw his sister and his father killed. He told the reporter, "I was so happy because I knew all my troubles, the people trying to kill me were behind me, because once you're in Spain, you are safe." However, nationalistic parties like Vox, as we established, aim to implement harsh immigration policies, reduce asylum seeker acceptance, and increase deportations. Finally, I would like to leave you with another quote from Pedro Sanchez's speech to highlight and make you think about our argument that rising nationalism is contrary to the EU's concept of open borders. This is his quote. In short, fight that is taking place around the issue of immigration is not a fight between Spaniards and foreigners. It is not a fight between Christians and Muslims, between saints and criminals. None of that. It is a fight between the truth and the lies, between the story and the data, between what interests us all and what interests a few. Ladies and gentlemen, we Spaniards are the children of migration. We are not going to be parents of xenophobia. Let's create an immigration policy that our elders can be proud of. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
judges, opposing team, and audience. I'm here as a second rebuttal to prove, well, to help in our argument that nationalism and open borders can coexist, as by definition they are fundamentally independent from one another. You see, as Claudia, my team member, said before, nationalism is defined by you liking your own country and you like wanting to preserve your country over like individually or as groups. And then if we look at the definition of open borders, also supplied by Claudia, it simply means that you can freely move in and out from different countries as well as goods. But if you think about it, what does that have to do with liking your own country? I mean, just think about it. If I'm Spain and I love my country, and then I can go from, but somebody else that may also be nationalist.
Would you not say there's a clear link between the right wing in politics and nationalism? And is that not linked to closure?
Yes, it is true that there is rising nationalism. Well, right wings tend to be related with nationalism, and that is rising. But that doesn't necessarily have to do with relating to open borders, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how open borders within the EU, you can go from one place to another without any border control. Now, okay, so speaking to what Jasmine said earlier, although it is true that there is an increase in nationalist like right wing, and Pedro Sanchez did give that beautiful speech on how he's going to increase immigration and all of that. Although he may do that, it has been shown multiple times throughout history that politicians do that just to gain votes. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of cases in which politicians make false promises and say, oh, I'm going to make taxes lower. I'm going to do this and that. But most of the time, that doesn't actually happen. So, not only that, but there's also an argument that immigration, as you've really enjoyed talking about, immigration is, yes?
Could it not be said that maybe the Prime Minister Viktor Orban could have been doing the exact same thing when he was talking about the fact that he still had freedom of movement throughout Europe, even with being a right-wing nationalist?
Yes. I don't know exactly who he is. Can you?
The Prime Minister Viktor Orban is the dictator in Hungary.
Dictator in Hungary. Okay. And he says that he'll increase immigration?
You mentioned in a previous...
So, all right. But immigration. But he didn't. So he said that he'd increase immigration. No, he'd decrease it. So that could be false, which means, or it could be true. But if it's false, then it's just back to my point from before. But if it's true, then it could be false as well. Well, my point is that politicians lie a lot. So lastly, immigration. There are multiple countries, such as Germany and regions such as Quebec and Canada, which use immigration programs to help immigrants adapt to their country. For example, in Germany, if you're an immigrant that goes there, you have an opportunity to learn the language there and to learn the social norms and things like that. That way people can adapt to the country, and it keeps nationalism whilst maintaining open borders and allowing free movement within the EU. Thank you.
Teams, you now have 2 minutes to prepare your summing up arguments. After those 2 minutes, we will call on the lead speaker for Agora to come up against the 2 minutes.
seems to know what he's doing. Go in
Yes, if you're ready for summing up for a call, please. Right, you have 2 minutes. Ready?
Alright. As we have seen throughout this debate, our team, me, Claudia, and Mariella, have made 3 arguments on why nationalism can perfectly coexist with open borders. So, first of all, because nationalist governors, or like nationalist countries in general, need open borders for the trade of goods and for resources, so that they can maintain a good economy. Then Mariella said that there really is no nationalist party which wants to close the borders, because it wouldn't be such an intelligent move to make, knowing that your economy relies on it. And then I said that not only are the cultural, are the definitions like fundamentally independent from one another, but that although politicians like to say beautiful speeches, most of the time they may not be true. And so comparing that to our opposing team, Seth, Jasmine, and Harry, they've really put an emphasis on immigration. However, that's only part of the argument and does not outweigh all the other reasons why we believe that nationalism can coexist with open borders.
And the speaker, please, from over.
This morning, my team have made a thorough exploration of how rising nationalism is contrary to the EU concept of open borders, showing you the true meaning of nationalism, explaining how it is opposing the EU's open border policy and how it is against fundamental human morals. We presented you with a plethora of reasons, backed up by clear facts and statistics that demonstrate that nationalism is not just only rising in the EU, but a powerful, dangerous force that's trying to twist our perceptions of what is right and what is wrong. The opposing team has tried to suggest that politicians lie, and using Pedro Sanchez's speech as an example. But they also mentioned how Viktor Orban made many close their borders temporarily in 2015, and were going to be more accepting with refugees and immigrants, I believe. However, he could be lying too, using their logic. Another thing that they mentioned was the Schengen area and how it allows free movement of people. However, Sweden is part of the Schengen area, and it has a coalition government that is run by many nationalistic countries, but however, it is also closing its borders, even though it is in the Schengen area. At the end of what we believe has been a thorough and convincing argument, we would like to leave you with one final thought. An answer to the question, is rising nationalism in the EU contrary to the EU concept of open borders? Here's a statement from the nationalistic Marine Le Pen in 2014. The EU is deeply harmful, is an anti-democratic monster. I want to prevent it from becoming fatter, from continuing to breathe, from grabbing everything. Think about these words. Now do you have your answer?
Well done.
Well done.
Now it's the turn of the judges. Give them about 10 minutes. I can know where you're
Is that you've now had to argue for or against a motion that you may not actually believed in. You might think that, you know, your own personal opinion is for, but by the flick of a coin, you're actually having to debate against, which is the whole challenge of the art of debating. Yeah? That's the essence of it. Not that you can stand up and give a speech for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it is and just say, you know, you've had it all prepared and you think, right, you know, you're going to have to debate according to Scott Tussle, the kind of thing. So now's the moment, while we've got the judges away, forget the teachers are here, you know, Javier's not visible, nice as Sally, and you just take off those masks. And what we've done to do with one or two of the other people that are here from the team, is and one or two of your team, what do you think? What do you really think? Do you think that you've argued absolutely in favour? Have you absolutely got the points right? And on one or two, for example, the young gentleman up there, I heard you muttering away quite a lot during the debates. What do you think about the motion today? What's your opinion?
Did the against, but we had to do for. I really like one of the speeches. Well, I liked all of them, but one of the speeches was that, like, we changed the kind of like how we thought of the motion, and we interpreted it in a way that maybe we wouldn't have imagined we could ever think of it. And I found that really interesting because we thought of like a way to get around the motion.
There's a lot of information come out today of all different kinds. What about yourselves? You young gentleman in the middle, what do you think about this?
I personally was in favor of this motion, and I also prepared my debate, but in the end our team decided that they would be happier to go against it. But so personally I was in favor, but I think both teams did a great job presenting it here. So, yeah.
And so what's the point? Why would you agree with the team debating against? What's the point? What was the point? The main point in their argument that changed your mind?
Well, of course they mentioned the economic reasons, how that helped, but then they also mentioned that it's not only the immigration from outside, but more within the EU itself. And Mark also talked about how the politicians, they can also make false promises from time to time. So yeah, I think it was well-rounded altogether.
What do you think of what the gentleman just said? Do you agree with him? A little bit louder so he can hear you. You actually agree with him, do you?
Yeah.
Why?
I think that it is true, like the economic reasons are like important, and the way that they changed the definition, that's something we did in our speech as well. Which, yeah.
Somebody from this team, what do you think of it? What would you think of that? It's Claudia, isn't it?
Like of what he said? Or
No, in general.
I mean,
just forget that Javier's there. Just
I mean,
that's the whole point of it. Yeah, well done.
They had solid arguments and proof, but at the same time, we also did. So, I mean, I see both sides of the debate, but in the end, I think that I'm against this. Like, you can actually have both.
I'm hearing voices here saying, no,
I'm going to say, come on.
I like it because people have got opinions.
Please, Sally, you've got opinions, so is Ron over there. I'm seeing going...
Sorry, no, I was pointing to you.
Yeah?
You
Right.
had a...
What do you think then?
You can't be in
Come on,
both camps.
Felicitas.
It doesn't work. But you must see the whole concept of nationalism. And that's not only the Europeans who are struggling, it's America. And all behind are these very, very right-wingers, as Steve Bannon, as all these people in the States. And Putin is working them together. And they are talking to each and other. And now it's clear that Trump, after he was out and no longer president, he is telephoning regularly with Putin. Ask why.
Ron, have you got an opinion on it?
I don't endorse what Felicitas has said, but behind all this, I think at the end of the day, time will tell. What else can you say in these sort of concepts about who's doing what, who's taking over? I think as far as Europe's concerned, my country's out of it, and we're doing okay, thanks.
Now there's a truly British thing. Bit of laughter down. What do you think, sir?
My opinion on the whole topic is I think that although people do want their country to be how their country is supposed to be, I understand that other people might think, but I want to travel to your country, but you won't let me. But I think that they should be allowed to see their culture, see how they perceive other people, how the government treats the country itself. And I honestly think the whole debate was interesting, not because of the politics, but just because of the arguments, the opinions of other people, and how Europe is going.
Now that was a good presentation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you think?
So personally, I would be in favor because I think that nationalism and open borders can coexist. As being proud of a nationality isn't the same as not liking other countries. You can still what do you say?
Yeah, I put it to you that, I mean, you're of the age that within another 2 or 3 years, you'll be travelling on your own.
Yeah.
Probably in groups of friends or with families, but, you know, you'll be travelling maybe within Europe, maybe further afield. Now, do you, at your age, both teams, do you think this is some kind of God-given right that you can travel, visit and stay in any other country, outside Europe or within Europe, because you're free to do so? In Europe, the idea is you can be free to do so. In the Schengen area as well. That doesn't include America, South America, I mean it doesn't include most of the world, quite honestly. What do you think? Because you think just a few years ahead. Not you're sitting here now, you want to travel further afield. You're going to need visas, you're not going to permissions, you may be only allowed to stay for 2 weeks, a month, we don't know. What do you think?
I completely agree with you that things will definitely change as we get older and as we travel. But I also think that sometimes it's quite easy for us to think that, it's really hard to explain, but that we've just got to remember that politics are controlling our lives, that the rules that they put in place could change the course of someone's life and where we travel, where we get a job. But I do think it is important that countries can travel within each other and communicate to each other, and I think that will make countries stronger together rather than apart.
And someone from this team, Mark?
Well, I agree. Like, people should be able to travel wherever they want, but like, I feel like I fall more in between, because there should be some sort of security, right? You shouldn't, like, it's obviously you should be able to go to whatever country you want, but if you are a thief or are planning to do something bad in that country, then there should be something to prevent you from doing it.
How will you know in advance? When you get to border control?
Like, well, that's why I don't know, but that's why I think, like, passports are a thing, because, like, although there are lots of cases in which it's unfair and most people can't get passports when they need them, but in a perfect world, like, you can use your passport to, like, prove that you're not going to, like, do some sort of...
Prove who you are.
Yeah, prove that you're not pretending to be somebody else who is a thief who's going to try to, like, do something bad to the country.
Right, I mean, I'm just going to throw it open a different question altogether, because we've got, I think, a couple of minutes and the jury will be back. Several of you mentioned politics quite a few times. So my question to you is, and you're saying politics are going to rule your lives in the future. Having been in politics, I think you've got an exaggerated idea of the importance of some politicians, let me put it that way. But Are any of you thinking that you'd like to go into politics? Would you like to go into politics? Here in Mallorca. Let's not go further away than Mallorca. Who would like to go into politics in Mallorca? Or even just a local council? There must be somebody sitting here.
I'm not sure I'd like to, but my mother always tries encouraging me to, as she says there's so many politicians out there that just need replacement.
Well said, smart.
And yeah, she tries encouraging, like, smarter people should be at the top. That's
It's a question of getting voted, really, isn't it?
personally, I don't really like that power and responsibility. But yeah, I guess it is important who is in charge.
Because if you want to change things, somebody's got to stand up, Mark.
I think the reason why, I think it's a theory, the reason why people, why politicians, people tend to not like them is for two reasons. Number one, there are mainly two parties, so there's always going to be backlash against the politician. But number two, people who tend to be smarter, let's say, tend to go into the private sector instead of the public sector because they feel like they could do something better there than in the public sector where almost all politicians are corrupt. So.
I think that's a very pessimistic view.
That is, yeah. Well, after 11 years in politics, I disagree. But that's my right too. But, Scar, you've got an opinion. What
Here
about
come the
yourself?
judge. Here come the judge.
Here comes the judge.
Just in time.
Well, just finished. We're just finishing one question. On this side?
Stay
Yeah,
there.
in you come. In you come.
Do you have any interest in being
Oh, no?
politician?
This isn't for the judges, this is for you. Are any of you going to go into two gentlemen at the back? Are any of you going to? No? No?
One question for all of them. Are there fathers or mothers involved in politics in any way? How do you know and who they support? Your father does what?
Did.
He did? He was a politician?
Yeah.
Where?
From, it'd be like a party in the centre.
Okay.
And he used to tell me, like, when I was little, he said, never get into politics.
There you have it.
Well done. Well, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.
Unaccustomed as I am. Yeah, no. Well done, you guys. That wasn't a simple topic, was it? No, I've got some shaking heads over here. You guys? No, it wasn't. You did an enormously good job, all of you, at arguing some really subtle points, didn't you? Yes? Some lovely examples. What I enjoyed from both teams, so both your openers, so Harry and Claudia, really nice opening structure. Was anybody nervous in the room? Yes. Even the judges. Yes, absolutely understand. All right. There was a little bit of fast talking. Did you notice? Right. So I'm going to talk about this, and now I'm going to talk about this. So sometimes that can lose the substance of what you're trying to deliver, because the words are great, but if you deliver them a little too fast, they lose the power.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a little bit of walking. I like walking myself. Okay? It's lovely to walk and involve the audience and look at everybody. But just be careful that in walking, you're not losing the people you're trying to touch. Yeah. So there was some gripping of the lectern. Who's the gripper of the lectern? Yeah. Gripping the lectern can come across like I'm really nervous, or I need to get to the toilet. Yes, we're never quite sure. Sorry?
That's more like pole dancing.
It's like pole dance. That was like pole. I was trying to emphasise the point, Steve, but we are in a school, Steve. No, but my point is staying in this kind of zone and talking to that audience. Some of you did really nicely. Look just above the top of the head. Okay, look deeply into people's eyes. Okay, looking just above the top of the head, delivering the message. Super stuff. Okay, so I made a couple of notes as we went there. The lectern we talked about. Who liked the visual cues? I do love a visual cue. Who ripped a visual cue up?
Yeah.
Harry, well done. I like it. 2 pieces. Who used emotive language? Who said right a couple of times? Who used skyrocketed? Oh, there we go. I love all that. I love all that. I'm not going to read as if it's a lecture. I'm actually going to add some emotive wording. Really nice. Okay, both teams, really, really good. Somebody used hands to emphasise. Who used, I have 1 point, I have 2 points, I have 3 points. I know, very good. It was you. Really nice, okay? Sometimes you don't need a visual cue, you don't need your voice. Sometimes just having a hand up here, the audience can follow you, yes? And you're emphasising the points. And also, we're trying to say, what's the substance of your argument? And he's saying 1, 2, 3, we can see it. Yeah, really nice. Leaving some of the things on the desk, great. Us poor judges with our bad eyesight looking at things. Then very nice, yeah, bad memory. Then very nice holding it up and explaining it. Yeah, really nice, guys. Okay, so lots to really enjoy. Lots to really enjoy in that. So hopefully a few things. So we had a little bit of a tricky problem. Probably you heard us in there. So it was extremely close. Extremely close on the scores. On my chart it was 1 point difference. And on my fellow judges we were very, very close. So this is normally the time for the drum roll. Hold on. I haven't got my papers. Ron, you're away. You're away. I do love an involved audience. Thank you. So we have
drum roll.
Winning score is come up, guys. Like really, really good. Okay. Here, who's taking photos? Harry's taking. Do you want us to angle there? Would you like us yours? You should hold that up. Okay, that hopefully has your school name. There we go. Good. Thank you very much. So it was really tricky on Best Debater because we had some wonderful openings and we had some lovely closings over here, and we had some really good pieces in the middle. I know, you can see that one coming, Steve.
Yeah.
You can see it.
The politicians.
So politicians' answer.
Yeah.
But what sort of stood out as we were going through was we score on a variety of things. So one is body language and presentation, one is logic and flow, one is link to their teammates. So all of these things kind of came into the argument. So some people were particularly good at presenting, some people were particularly good at logical arguments. The one that sort of, to us today, held it all together and did all of those three aspects was Claudia.
Wow!
Good stuff. Well done. Great. End of prize giving. Thank you very much.
Can we have a group photo, please? The
Group
teams
photo.
together. Two
Group
teams
photo, everybody together. Come over.
Sally.
Come over. Judges. Well done, guys. Come in here. There we go. Good stuff.
Tall ones at the back.
Well,
Little ones at the front. I can't.
you guys
There we
go
are.
closer. Squeeze up, squeeze up, squeeze up.
Big cheese. Thank you, and well
Absolutely amazing.
Well done.
Oh, sorry.